Hey Pietro, how's it going?
Hey Zara, everything's all right here in winter Venice. All's good.
That's
You?
really good. It's getting colder now in Dubai as well. Really good to see you. It's been a year. We met in July in Venice last year. And yeah, I'm super excited to have you on all the way from Venice for this video.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It's exciting to be part of this new project of yours.
Yes, anytime. All right, first question. What do you do and what's your process?
What I do is pretty complex because I have a background in political theory, but now I work mostly within the contemporary art programs in Venice. And Venice is pretty unique, so here it's almost needed by now to have like a syncretic practice between different disciplines. And what I do sits at the in between politics, ecology, and art, especially through the work of Barina Bianca. That is a collective that me and a friend founded in 2018. So it's been now 6 years
Wow,
running. Yeah.
that's awesome. Could you please tell us more about Barina Bianca?
Uh, sure. Barina Bianca was born almost as a joke, to be honest, and as a student project. But also, it was born out of a feeling that me and my friend Fabio Cavallari had, because it was the last exam in art school. And everyone who has been working in creative disciplines know about the absolute terror of finishing school and having to start actually working. Um, and especially in Venice, it's pretty hard to stay here because, as most people know, the city has lost almost 70% of its population from the 60s onwards. Um, so we wanted to do a work that talked about us trying to stay in Venice, but also that talked about the ecology of the lagoon because both of us were,
Oh.
well, good nature-loving boys in Venice, even though we're not originally from here. So we went to the marshes close to the airport. Actually, it's curious because it's one of the most well-preserved marshlands in the Venetian lagoon, and most people see it while landing or while departing. But then it's completely invisible from Venice because almost 70% of this ecosystem has been eroded in the same period, more or less. So from the 60s. So we were like, wow, us trying to stay in Venice, we are similar to the marshes, trying to, make Venice survive and making the lagoon healthy, but being eroded and pushed away. And so we created this group and we have been working with especially didactic projects. So initially with children, with schools, but then also with teenagers, with elderly people. Initially, mostly to learn ourselves about the importance of the lagoon's ecology, and then to kind of spread the love for the lagoon. And especially it's interesting because we were visiting these lagoons as a student initiative, and we got to meet this local activist called Tito Pamio that you've also met, um, kayaking among the marshes, because from there you can really see it from the intertidal level between you're sitting with your ass in the water, so you're forced to like look at it from the same perspective. And so he has spread the love of the marshes to us, and what we try is spread the love to others.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I remember that trip with Tito on Tito's Island. It was such an amazing day. It's so memorable for me. I think it was one of my best days in Venice.
Yeah,
Not only
that's good to hear.
kayaking all the way there, I remember he had like this cage of like bunny rabbits that he had like let loose on the island. And then they had given us like a half an hour to go pick fruits, and there were some of the best fruits I had in my life were, there. And then
Yeah.
I remember you gave us a very like insightful little talk about the plants that are growing in the lagoon that are being used. Like you could eat it, and the salt especially. If you could tell us about that salt.
Yeah, sure. uh it's fun to hear that that was the trip of the rabbits, because that comes up every time we go. We're like, oh yeah, these rabbits, we brought them there because they're still there actually, which is cool. Yeah, I mean, the island there, the island of Campalto, is one of the central um, one of the core elements of our work because we go there at least once or twice a year to like maintain it together with Tito. Thank God, like he's a historical activist, so he has a lot of people like us helping
Mm,
because it's a public good and it's accessible to everyone. Of course, you need to have your boat, but that's then it's accessible to everyone, and it's only thanks to Tito that it's accessible and that the trees growing fruits are there, and that you can comfortably leave your boat there and get down. Um, and like the commons, especially public space in Venice, is severely under attack. I mean, everything is becoming more and more privatized. Everything is becoming more and more
mm,
dedicated to tourism and to these kind of activities. So
mm,
it's very important to maintain such spaces of resistance, especially
mm,
being an island.
mm,
Um, and from there, it's a privileged point also to learn about the lagoon because
mm,
many, like with the removal of marshes,
mm,
even local population is forgetting about the
mm,
lagoon's ecology.
mm,
It's very interesting topic. It's also studied as a shifting baseline syndrome. So as the baseline of an ecosystem changes and things disappear, also the memory disappears from the population.
mm,
So like empowering elderly experts like Tito to share their knowledge is very important because it's only thanks to people like passing it on that these memories survives.
mm.
And especially these plants are very charismatic because it's thanks to them if the lagoon is not getting eroded. They're very small, like you remember. I mean, maybe you have some photos that you can
Yeah,
share about that trip, but it's very small plants,
yeah,
basically succulent plant, like tiny cacti.
yeah.
And it's only thanks to their roots that the marshes stay there. And it's interesting to eat that food
We
because
tried it. I
growing,
tried it. Yeah.
yeah, because growing on these brackish waters, they incorporate all the salt.
Mm,
So you eat it and it tastes like the lagoon. Fabio, my colleague in Marina Bianca, he's also a chef, so we are increasingly using food to like make people aware of these things.
mm,
Once we made gummy bears with the salicornia, this plant that grows there, and
mm.
they tasted really bad, to be honest. But you know, the taste of the lagoon. Well, other times we cook things that are much more tasty. And
Yeah.
also the fruit that you can eat there is slightly different. Like you said, it's one of the best fruit that you had. And that's maybe because it had a tiny bit of salty flavor that you're not used to.
Yes.
You know, eat it like a slightly salty plum. That's very strange, but
Yeah.
you know.
It was really so, so good. And it was an experience that I never had in my life, you know. And I'm so happy that people like you, people like Tito, who care so much about the lagoon, are sort of passing down this record through this like documentation and activism. And even like the drawings that you shared with me, Tito, he makes these drawings. I can imagine like he's the only one, you know, who's kind of recording these things. And I'll share the links so whoever's interested can, you know, check them out. They're very nice. So yeah, this is super, super important, but also very valuable.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you know, when we think about these problems, they are at the same time global and extremely local. And many times, especially in places like Venice, these two things can clash. Like,
Mm,
you know, there's a lot of egoism, like saying, Venice is uh, being submerged by floods, it's eroding, blah, blah, blah. It's our problem, it's not other people's problem.
mm,
But that's not really true. And at the same time, it's not like only a global problem. So, like bringing the knowledge and the perspective of local experts, even
mm.
though, you know, Tito actually he has studies hydraulic engineering. When he was like 42, he went back to university. Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, he's not like known to be a hydraulic engineer. But so he blends this knowledge that he has also technical knowledge, but with an extremely local perspective.
Mm,
So I think it's important also for people working, you know, in architecture and creative disciplines and so on to
mm.
always remember that there is a local knowledge, and so to somehow become anthropologists in a way and like go to speak with the people who live with the places.
Exactly. And that brings me to like this point of vernacular, you know, architecture, that the people who were born there, they know about it best. As much as you study history and you try to come with the outward lens, it's just so valuable to have that local knowledge and give it the respect and the attention, to study,
Mhm.
and then kind of inspire the next generations or the outsiders to come in and have an opinion on it. So super valuable kind of information, and I'm so happy that it's being documented. And I wish that, the younger generation kind of comes up now and um, helps in this documentation of this, thing that is sort of eroding physically, but also, through information.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we could do a better job at documenting it because oftentimes we focus on this experiential aspect of our work.
Yeah.
Um, that means, bringing people there,
Mm.
everything being very spontaneous, so that it remains in the minds of people.
Mm.
But we're also working in improving a little bit the communication aspect. That
Yeah.
sometimes, you
Yeah, the
know,
languages and the translation. And actually, now that we brought this up, I'd be super interested to do a little publication about Tito's Island. We could work on it together, and I could love to compile the drawings, photographs. I could write about it. I could interview other people who, visited the island with me that day. This would be super cool. And I could probably do like an Arabic English little translation here and, share it with people. So
yeah, that would be cool. Um, Actually, that's a good idea. It's like being born right now, but
let's do it.
since yeah, we've already brought so many people there that I mean, that could be a lot of contributions.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk about that another day, but we'll do it. Awesome.
great deal.
All
Yeah.
right. So, as someone who has been researching and spending a lot of time in Venice, I think you said 6 years now, um, quite a lot of time. What changes are you noticing personally when it comes to awareness and activism in the local community of Venice?
Mhm. Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, 6 years, we have been working with Varena Bianca, but I've been here for a little bit longer, like 8 years now.
Mm.
And things, I mean, it's very hard because, it's always my perspective. Of course, when I just arrived, I was a student and I didn't know anything. Well, now I guess I became a member of the community somehow, even though, you never become a real Venetian somehow. There is a saying that is Venetian is who Venetian, it's hard to translate, who act like a Venetian. So like when you respect the city, when you learn about the places, you
Mm.
actually become Venetian. While if you're born here but you don't care at all, maybe you're
You're
not
not
that much.
Venetian.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess everywhere in the world since I moved here in 2016. So in this 8 years, the whole world has gained like much broader awareness of ecological problems, global warming, and so on. Um, but I have seen, especially in Venice, like a much bigger awareness about local knowledge, traditional knowledge that's being lost. And that's also because there has been somehow a resurgence of vernacular techniques,
Mm.
especially in fishing, also in building somehow, even though the historical center of Venice, of course, you cannot build new things, but there is a much deeper awareness of the fact that techniques and things from the past that have been abandoned during, economical growth in the 70s, in the 80s, like everyone was like, yoo-hoo, let's not care anymore about the traditional ways because now we
Mm.
have better ways of doing things.
Mm.
And those ways might be more efficient, but they came at the hidden cost
Mm.
of damaging the lagoon and the city itself. So now there is for sure a better awareness of this. And especially in the children, like um, you know, the first workshops that we did in 2018, 2019, children in Venice are very aware of certain things that, I mean, I grew up in Milano, that uh, there's not that much of an awareness. Like the ecosystem is very remote from the city, while here you have it, you walk and you see the lagoon and
Mm.
you get floods and you get problems. And in the beginning, children were, of course, aware of the problems with the flooding and so on,
Mm,
but they were not aware that this was like part of a global problem.
mm,
And now I think that just 6 years after, like the awareness has grown a lot
mm.
um, in the citizens. Then in the political class, I cannot say quite the same, but you know, it will change at some point. Like
Yeah.
things start changing in the people, and then hopefully they will start changing at the upper spheres as well.
Yeah. Well, change starts, with small steps and then it grows and grows and grows. So hopefully for the
Hopefully.
future, fingers crossed. I would like to ask you, what are you currently exploring in your work and what's next for you?
Well, I'm part of Barena Bianca, but that's not, of course, my full-time job because it's hard to make a living as a art and ecology activist group. I guess it's not the most lucrative business. And my real job is being a researcher in political science and art. And
Mm,
I'm currently working on rights of nature, which is the possibility of giving a legal personhood to ecosystems.
mm,
Um, Recently, we organized together with a big European network called the Confluence of European Water Bodies. We organized a big convening in Venice in which almost 60 people representing almost 20 ecosystems around Europe
wow.
came to Venice to, yeah, it's quite a lot. And everyone came here on their own time and energy and money. So it was really moving to see this
Mm,
mobilization of people and waters uh, to develop a European strategy to give legal recognition to ecosystems that, of course,
mm,
are alive. So
mm,
why shouldn't they be recognized as a legal entity while corporations and ships are? So this is currently my
mm,
main focus as an individual, and we're also, of course, working a lot with Barena Bianca on this topic.
mm,
We're collaborating with a Polish collective called the River Sisters, especially on connecting like water ways to communicate with water.
mm,
They work especially on rivers, and we work on the lagoon and the rivers that flow in it,
mm,
as well as with the rest of the Confluence of European Water Bodies network.
mm,
And since we already worked so much on the Lagoon of Venice, now we are working on creating meaningful connections with other places that have similar problems.
mm,
We're working on a long-term project in Turkey with the Sea of Marmara and the Bosphorus, especially on the topic of biodiversity and the disappearing of uh, keystone species.
mm,
And we're working with some guys also in Florida, in the Everglades. So in a way, I mean, it all happens in a very chaotic way because it happens in when we get in touch with people with a similar vision who can facilitate us working and
mm,
creating allegiances and synergies.
mm.
Um, so yeah, we want to reach out and find allies in other places, while at the same time, of course, keep working on the ground and you
Mm,
know spreading the love. But we are working a little bit on um, rationalizing our way of working and making it more efficient. Uh,
mm.
to because we, as everyone, we are human beings, so we must not waste energies. That's just ecological, I guess.
That's a very nice way to, answer. I really, really, enjoyed talking to you, Pietro. I feel like every time I sit down and I'm listening to you speak, I leave the conversation a smarter individual. So thank you for the research that you do, for the initiatives that you care about, and the passion that you show. I'm sure that people watching this are going to feel very inspired. Um, Not only the people in Venice, but even the people around the world, like water is a global issue, and the more research that, goes behind it, the more problems we can solve. So thank you so much for your time, and I will definitely reach out to you about that publication project in the near future, and all the best with everything.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to speak. Like you're so curious and enthusiastic that uh, you know always makes you hopeful to speak with the
Yeah,
happy people.
awesome. All right.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.